Hey guys, what's up? So I've been getting a couple requests for some walk around videos and kind of a big detailed description of what this airplane is. So we're gonna go all the way around. I'll talk about as much as I possibly can. Maybe kind of a long one, but we'll see what we can do. So we'll start up here at the front. For a prop, this is a Kato constant speed. It's a 82-inch 3-blade. Basically what it is, it's a Macaulay hub with some carbon fiber blades made by Kato. And it's fantastic. It's really light. It's like 48 pounds. Comes with a carbon spinner and everything. So far it's a fantastic prop. Super smooth, pulls like a freight train down low. Really good prop, can't recommend them enough. And then the front of the cowling. So I do have a video on the cowling of the airplane. If you guys go back into my videos, you can find more. But basically this is a standard Bearhawk nose bowl that's been cut apart. So if you'll come over here, basically right here I added in a intake. This center intake, it's got three tubes that come off of it into 3-inch scat tubes. We've got a air filter in the middle, and then we've got a scat that goes down each side, and that gets dual, those are dual scat tubes that go down underneath the motor, and then they go into a little air box that's on a 17-row oil cooler down there in the bottom that helps keep this thing cool. So far that's all working out great. Other than that, it's a pretty standard Bearhawk cowling. You got your side doors. I added a set of louvers for cooling. Got 4 big cowl flaps on it. Some of that's going to get changed a little bit here soon, but it's cooling pretty well. Our biggest thing is this airplane's going to Africa, so it's going to be 110 degrees on the ground, taking off a lot. So my rule here was I never want to see a cylinder even touch 400 degrees. That way when we get to Niger, we're not going to be having problems. So we've actually had higher heat here in Oklahoma than we have in Niger in the last couple weeks, and every once in a while I'm seeing a cylinder creep into the 405 range or something on climb out. So basically I'm going to change the lower cowl flaps up just a little bit. This setup would work fantastic here in the States. It would cool better than, you know, anything you would need. But because we are going overseas, I'm going to add a little bit extra cooling and go that way. So under the cowling here, we've got a Lycoming 540. So this is a parallel valve, 6-cylinder 540 Lycoming factory 260 horse engine. It's got a couple things added to it, straight pipe exhaust. We've got the EFIS system 32, so you got individual injectors for each cylinder, as well as a couple other things, remote oil cooler or remote oil filter, and then basically all the stuff to make it all run. That system so far has been absolutely fantastic. I love the EFII system. It basically modernizes the Lycoming engine, so it takes that proven Lycoming building block and then modernizes it with you know, semi-sequential injection and variable timing and all kinds of stuff, and it allows us to run this engine on 91 octane auto fuel. So far that's been fantastic. I think the motor is making somewhere in the 290 horsepower range. It also has a Barrett cold air intake that goes to that forward induction system. So it's now a forward induction 540 with a cold air intake. It does really good so far. With this power plant and everything, you'll see on a cool day by yourself, you'll see 2,000 feet a minute. On a hot day, full gross, you're making 800 feet a minute at least. So it's been really good. It's plenty of power for the airplane. And this engine and prop setup ended up being really light because you're able to pull all the stuff off of it. This motor ended up weighing like 380 pounds, and that prop is like 48 or 49 pounds. So that firewall forward combination ends up shaving, you know, about 60 to 80 pounds off of what you'd have with a angle valve 540 or something like that. So that's the engine. Down here we have landing gear. So this is not the factory Bearhawk landing gear. This is a Shock Monster landing gear that Tony built for me at TK1. Basically, the Shock Monster gear system is the same height as a Bearhawk system, and we widened it a foot, and then we added in a cabane V that makes the whole system work. So now you got a cabane V with shocks and standard gear legs. So far this system's been really good. Helps the airplane track really well, and it actually gives you about 12 inches of wheel travel. So you can really hit the ground hard, and it makes it look like a good landing. So I've enjoyed that system so far. It's good. There's nothing wrong with a factory Bearhawk system, especially if you're just grass strip hopping and stuff like that. But if you're really doing some off-airport work, Tony builds a fantastic gear, and I really like that system. So the only downside to the gear right now is even with full fairings. So right now I've just got some fairings on I built. We're flight testing them. We're gonna get all of these painted up. They'll all be painted to match. There'll be airfoils down here on all of this stuff. So I think, based on what I'm seeing, this airplane, this landing gear with a full fairing job on it is gonna be about a 5 mile-an-hour hit. With all the fairings on it. If you're flying it without fairings, I flew it for 40 hours without fairings on it, you're gonna take about a 15 mile-an-hour hit on the gear. So that's knocking you back. You know, but you can still cruise fast if you want to feed it, but you're burning a whole lot more fuel. So on the end of that landing gear, we have Desser 31-inch tires with Grove 10-inch wheels in the middle. So these are 31-inch tubeless bush wheels. These are O-ringed wheel halves. I've got a whole video on that if you're interested. That wheel and tire combo has been absolutely fantastic. It's a lot lighter than bush wheels, and it also ends up being quite a bit cheaper, and these tires wear fantastic on pavement. If you come up here, you can see you still have a molding line in the middle of this tire. These tires have they've probably got at least 100 pavement landings on them, and yeah, I mean, they wear really well for what they are. I've been running them at 12 PSI. They've been really good, and so I think we'll continue to run those. They've been fantastic. Okay, so one of the coolest things about a Bearhawk is the wings. The wings are fantastic. They're a really good combination between STOL flying and getting really good cruise speeds. So this airplane right now stalls at about 43 mile an hour. And on the top side, you've got a V&E of 180, and this airplane will cruise, you know, at 24 squared, a 70% power cruise. They'll cruise all day long at 145 to 150 mile an hour. So the only things I've really done to these wings, there's very little, is up here in the wing root, I've got two air inlets. Those two air inlets go inside through scat tubes to some air vents. Because we're going somewhere it's really hot, the front seats actually have 8 air vents coming into them for the front and the second row. Help keep some ventilation in there. I don't like to sweat that much. Coming down the wing, we've got a Garmin pitot tube. So this is one of their full IFR heated AOA capable pitot tubes. It's been fantastic so far, no issues with that. Standard just Bearhawk wing cuffs and tie down loops. Out here at the ends of the wings, this is really the biggest modification I did to the wings, is these are 18-inch Horner tips. So basically they're carbon fiber. They weigh about the same as the factory tips, but they extend 18 inches. The science on this is that with a rounded tip, your air is always circulating around the tip of the wing, and you're really losing about 12 inches of wing worth of lift. With a Horner tip, it makes that air come and swirl outside. So you gain that foot back. With this tip, you gain about another 6 inches, and then it swirls everything out the end of the wing. So that's a theory. I haven't flown without them yet. I were on from the beginning. So far, I've liked them, haven't noticed any bad effects or anything. And then I modified them and put a set of landing lights in them. These are some par 36 watt Prometheus landing lights. So I've got one in each wingtip, and I've also got 2 in the belly pod in the bottom that we'll talk about here in a second. And so far those have been fantastic. Out here on the end, I've got wheel in position LED lights. I mean, there's not much to say about those other than they work really well and they're light. They use almost no power. Strobes are great, visibility's great on them. So that's about it for the So that's it for the tips of the wings. The only other thing is right here I've got Bearhawk's auxiliary tanks. So they're 12.5 gallons a side, and they electrically transfer to the mains. They're listed at 12.5. They really hold like 13, maybe a little bit more. So you really got 26 gallons in the aux. And then the main tanks that are inboard are listed at 27.5. You can really squeeze 30 into them. So realistically, if you just got a packet full of fuel, you've got somewhere in the 86 gallon range for fuel. And then additionally on the fuel side of things, I've got a bladder setup that goes in that belly pod that's another 40. So realistically, I've got 126 gallons of fuel, which can get you 1,500 miles plus at altitude. So that's plenty of fuel. On these Bearhawks, you've got standard ailerons outboard here. I've got static wicks, which is kind of weird on a fabric airplane, but I do have them. They're electrically bonded into the metal structure and electrically bonded to the wing itself, so they're helping pull static out of the wings. I wouldn't deal with it here in the States, but because it's insanely sandy where we're flying in West Africa, the airplanes build up tons of static electricity on them. So I figured anything I can do to help get rid of that, why not try? So this is a Bearhawk flap. So Bearhawks are pretty cool on the flaps. They're plain flaps, so they don't do as much as a Fowler would. But you have 8.5 feet of 18-inch cord flap that go to 45 degrees. So with that much flap, you've got plenty of drag to come in. Helps tip the nose down a bunch. And the difference between no flaps and full flaps is somewhere in the 6 to 7 mile an hour range on stall. So it does help you out on the stall a little bit. Moving back, we'll go to the back of the airplane. The back of the airplane is pretty much stock. Nothing crazy here as far as Bearhawks are concerned. The only thing I really modified on the back here is I've got VGs on the underside of the horizontal. They do help with aileron control. And then I've got a VOR antenna that's built into the rear end of the airplane. This thing is full IFR. You don't have enough width really up here in the vertical to put your VOR up there. So it ended up going down in the tail. And then the only thing really back here is I've got a little inspection hatch right here. That's because I've got a Garmin trim servo hidden underneath there for electric trim. And it picks up the cables running back. So there's a Garmin GSA 28 servo in there. And I didn't want to have to crawl into the back of the airplane to work on it, so I put a big hatch right there. Coming around the back of the airplane, Bearhawk's trim system's great. You got one of these trim tabs on each side. Same deal with static wicks that I bonded in. Should help, who knows. And then I've got VGs on the rudder. I pulled them off for my logo here, but we'll probably add some back in there. And then on the tail, Bearhawk's now sending all these airplanes out with a stinger. So you've got a standard stinger similar to a 180. Really good system. On a leaf spring, you really get a lot of spring like this. You don't get so much side to side. So a lot of times that can lead to fuselage cracking. Cubs have issues. I know some of the Bearhawks in the past had cracked right there. So by going to the stinger, you get a spring in every direction. And so far it's really good. Honestly, I looked at like a T3 or something like that, but this system, there's nothing to break. And honestly, it seems to be doing really good. So for a tail wheel, this is a Bearhawk Tundra tail wheel. So it's a 400x4 tail wheel. So far, fantastic. I think I'll continue to run it. It doesn't shimmy on pavement once you get your tension set properly. And it will float the tail of this big heavy airplane on soft sand. So I did look at a baby bush wheel or something like that, but baby bush wheels shimmy like crazy. And these are a really, you can find these tires everywhere. They're a standard aircraft tire. And I believe this whole setup was like maybe 900 bucks. So really good tail wheel. You can buy a second one and put it on the shelf and you're still less than a baby bush wheel. So yeah, good on that. So one of the best features on a Bearhawk is the cargo doors here. So you've got your big forward door, and you got your rear door. Pretty good. I did on this rear door, I extended these rear latches, or these rear hinges, by about 1 inch each. So what it lets you do is it lets you run the door all the way back. On the factory setup, it wouldn't go all the way back because the skin right here would dig into the fabric. So I ended up extending those a little bit so I can go all the way back, because we're going to be running stretchers in and out of here. And I wanted to be able to go in like this rather than having to weave through the doors and come in. So those are extended. Fabric covered the inside. Other than that, they're pretty much standard. I did cut my own door skins. So normally on these Bearhawks, you've got a separation in the door skin right here. And there's another piece that you rivet down over the top of it. I didn't really like that, so I ended up cutting my own door skins for the rear as well as the front. I did the same thing. So these front doors are pretty much standard Bearhawk doors. I added a lock into the rear door because we're going to be leaving the airplane sitting on airports in Africa. Added a rear seat vent right there. And then on the inside, it's pretty much the same thing. Added a gas strut right there on the inside. Air vent and your latch. So got an inspection panel in there. Haven't needed to get in yet, so I've left it closed. On the inside here, this is your standard seating setup for the 6-seat Bearhawks. So you got your 2 in the front, and then your second row right here, and then your third row right here. In all honesty, that third row is pretty good. I'm about 6 foot, 225-ish. I can sit back there just fine if I need to. So
thumbs up.
In all honesty, the third row is the easiest one to get in because you have a massive door. Aside from that, my bulkhead right here is just a carbon fiber closeout. Inside of that is all of the header tank, fuel valves, fuel pumps, fuel filters, as well as my ELT. So all of that stuff is the magic to making the EFII happen. If you guys are interested in the EFII stuff, honestly, I can't speak highly enough about it. Even if you don't have an auto fuel consideration and you're just wanting to run avgas, this thing runs like an absolute sewing machine. Runs fantastic. The EFII modernizes it all so well that engine just runs fantastic, makes good horsepower. It's a really good system, but there is a little bit of airframe specific modification to get it into the airframe. The only other thing I did here in the back was we've got a light switch right here. That light switch is live bust to set overhead lights inside the airplane, so when you're loading up at night in the dark, early morning, you just give that a flip and you got lights in the airplane. You don't have to kick on the panel or any of that stuff. So these doors are pretty easy, pretty simple. You know, just close them up when they stay latched. This wing over here is essentially the same. There's nothing different from the other side, so we're not going to do much with that. Something I've got a lot of questions on is the belly pod on the bottom of this. So this belly pod is, no, you can't buy one somewhere. I made my own mold and everything. It is a NACA 4130 airfoil inverted and stretched to fit the airframe. So you've got a door over here that opens up on just some simple cable hinges, and you've got a door on the other side in the back corner. You can fit items up to 6.5 feet long in here. This is full carbon fiber. I've placarded it 300 pounds. It attaches to the airframe at 24 locations where I welded tabs in during construction. It's really strong, probably overbuilt, but it's really good. So what that lets you do is you can put stuff on CG. You can also load stuff in front of the CG in that belly pod. So if you've got 6 people in here, yeah, there's still baggage space in the back, but you might be getting on that rear CG. Here you can move it forward by putting all your baggage down low. If we've got stretchers in and all that kind of stuff, you can put it down there. If you got nasty stuff that you don't want in there in your seats, you can put it down there. I've also got a 40-gallon fuel bladder that goes in there that then transfers to the main wings. So that allows me to carry another 40 gallons in fuel. That's it basically for the outside. If you guys have more questions on the outside, feel free to let me know. I'll throw some pictures up of how I molded that belly pod. It's not really for the faint of heart. I have thought about molding them. Honestly, potentially could mold them if I had enough orders to make it worth it, but making a serious plug to be able to pull a bunch off of is a pretty good financial investment. And honestly, I would do that belly pod again. It's really hard to overload a Bearhawk 5. Like, you got a lot of space back there. But if you're really using the airplane, the belly pod's cool, and as best I can tell, we didn't lose any cruise speed with it. It's a really good question as to why. I think the airfoil shape and the good taper to it has a lot to do with that, but I don't think we lost any airspeed with it. So It is about a 35-pound hit on weight. So essentially, I got rid of all the belly fabric and all the belly structure, and that is permanent attachment to the airplane. You don't fly the airplane without it. So, trying to think what else I want to say about that.
Do you want to do the landing lights? You didn't do the landing lights in the belly pod?
So that's about it on the belly pod. The only other thing I did was a set of landing lights up here. With the landing gear, so far, those landing lights work really, really well. They light up the ground underneath you really well. Practicality of them, I don't know. They seem to work great. Between those two and the two in the end, I've got 4 par 36s of the good Prometheus G3s, and they are working fantastically so far. Yeah, so I think that's about it for the outside. We'll go talk about the panel real quick, and that'll be it. So up front here, you've got, standard pilot seats. I've got 4-point harnesses with inertia reels up here. Thanks, camera lady. These do fold forward for getting people in and out of the airplane. 4-point harnesses with inertia reels up here on the top. Those have been fantastic. I believe those are from seatbeltplanet.com. If anybody wants to know what they are, just leave a comment below and I can put a link to them. But they've been great. I did modify this seat, and that seat over there is going to get modified. These now have basically mechanical seat tracks in them. So while you're sitting in the airplane, you can slide your seat back and forth. It goes about 3 inches farther back than the factory Bearhawk spot, and it also goes about 1 inch farther forward. The reason for that is I'm not a particularly tall guy. I'm like 6 foot tall, but this is the hardest part in a Bearhawk, is this little deal right here, getting your legs in and across. This is with the seat all the way back. Right there is the factory Bearhawk spot, and I literally was like having to grab my foot and drag it in here. So I went ahead and did that. So is it worth it? I like it a lot. It's up to you if you want to do it or not, but that's the beauty of these airplanes, is you can do whatever you want. So on these, I believe these are TS8 grips. So I've basically got like trim up and down. I've got a horn tied into it, a go around button, push to talk, and autopilot disconnect all on the stick. So far it's been great. I've got a couple other things worked into this function button. You got 4 functions there. Can't complain with those. Down here you've got your flap lever. Nothing crazy with that, just standard Bearhawk flap lever. Didn't do much with it. And then up top is your trim wheel. So far I've really liked the trim system in this Bearhawk. Some people don't like them, but I'm a fan of the trim system. And then up here, this is the panel. So essentially started with the idea of, I need IFR. What's the lightest IFR avionics I can get? And we went from there. So over here on this side is all your switches for running the engine. And you got an emergency switch, as well as the top row is your fuel. So that's which fuel pump you're running. Fuel left, fuel right. And then we've got 2 alternators on one switch, so you can't run them both at the same time, because that's not good, because they're running on the same bus. So you got that. You've got your battery select. With this system, you can start with 1 battery or 2 batteries. We've got, in this airplane, we've got dual EarthX 1200s. We've also got dual alternators and dual buses. So with the EFIS system, my one caution on it is not made to be slapped into an existing electrical system. If you're going to do it and you're going to do it safely, you need to design your electrical system around the EFI. So I started with EFI and then built the electrical system around it. So in this airplane, to have a failure, we've got essentially 2 60 amp alternators. The 60 amp vacuum pad really only makes about 48 or so, but we've got 2 full-size alternators and 2 full-size batteries. If you lose both alternators, you've got enough battery power to fly for 3 hours. On your electrical buses, I've got my essential bus that always gets power diverted to it automatically through the EFII system. So if there's power anywhere in the airplane, it's getting diverted to the essential bus in the electrical system. And all my essential avionics for IFR flights, so meaning 650, G3X, G5, everything I have to safely continue flight if I'm in the clouds when we have an electrical failure, is on that essential bus. You've got power you've got essentially 3 ways to get power to it. You've got the primary track for power to get to it. You've got the main bus, which will be automatically diverted to the essential bus in case of a failure. And then up here, I've got a switch that essentially transmits all power from the battery straight into the essential bus. So instead of having to go through the system, that basically links your battery straight into the essential bus, and you got direct power connection. So you've got 4 sources of power and 3 paths to get those 4 sources of power to the electrical system. In all honesty, it's a really, really reliable system. I would venture to say this system's more reliable than a mechanical mag system, because there's actually no mechanical parts to wear out in it. There's no mechanical mags to wear out, none of that kind of stuff. So far, it's been really, really good. We'll see down the road with a bunch of hours on it what the reliability is, but so far it's literally been completely trouble-free. Then we've got in the panel, we've got a 10-inch Garmin screen, a G5. This is the EFIS controller. This knob right here is essentially your fuel mixture. The computer's always running the mixture for you once you get all the engine tuned in, but you still have manual control over the mixture. So if for some reason you're getting a hot cylinder, you can cool it down with a little bit of fuel. If you want to run lean of peak, you can set the system to automatically do that, or you can set it to basically go to peak EGT, and then you can pull it lean of peak by yourself if you want to do it. That's how I've been doing it right now. Mine automatically in the low RPM range in cruise and an eco cruise automatically is leaning to peak EGT, and then if I'm in a stable cruise, I'm gonna be there for a while, I'll pull it lean to peak. And so far it's doing really, really good. So then we got throttle and prop, and that's it because the mixture is controlled here. And then our center stack, we've got a Garmin GMA 245, just experimental intercom. And then coming on down, we've got a Garmin GTN 650 XI. Then we've got the Garmin GSA, I think it's 500 autopilot control head. And then this is a digital keypad that runs on a CAN bus system and controls what's called a hardwire electronics PDM25 in the back, behind the panel. I do have an entire avionics video if you guys want to go back and find that explains this all in detail. But essentially that keypad is 12 buttons, fully programmable, multifunction, that all run a PDM, which is a power distribution module behind the panel. So that panel actually runs about 32 separate circuits in the airplane, and it's all run through that, and it's all in the back, and it's all breakers, because I did not have enough room in this airplane to put all the breakers in. So that's that, and then over here we've got the just smaller Garmin unit, and then we've got a breaker panel over there. I made up these breaker panels real quick, breaker panels and switch panels, just to fly it for a while and make sure I didn't want to change anything. We're gonna get some laser cut ones that look really nice, but for right now that works. We've moved a couple of things here and there, so it was a good system. I didn't have to buy 2 really expensive laser ones. So aside from that, up top we've got sight gauges. These are just a Schedule 40 clear pipe. So far it's been working good. Made my own fuel gauges behind that. And then those air vents out on the wings that we talked about, one of them comes here and one of them comes here. And then I'm trying to think what else. So the skylight is not a factory Bearhawk setup. The factory Bearhawk setup lets you have a skylight in each side, so it lets you have a skylight there, and this center section is closed. I wanted a full skylight, so this is essentially a 5% tinted Lexan in the top. I made my own runners and welded in some structure to support it in there, and did that. So that's the basics. The interior is as light as you can do an interior and still have an interior. It's fabric on all the interior. That's about it for the interior here. I do have like special carbon fiber floorboards and stuff. There's not really a good way to show you that with everything in the airplane. There's a full video down on my channel that you can find that's about that. Basically I built floor pans out of carbon fiber where it captures all the dirt. And they're 1/8 inch honeycomb core floorboards that are about 6 pounds lighter than the rest of the aluminum floorboards were all done. So those are highly recommend. Loving those so far. Aside from that, there's really not a whole lot more I can show you without tearing the airplane apart. There's autopilot servos and stuff down here. You can find those in the avionics video if you guys are curious. But aside from that, so far the interior is great. I wouldn't change anything with it. We'll see. Sometimes it's like, would you put an aluminum interior in it? Well, maybe. I mean, I'm sure we'll get holes in the fabric at some point, but it's, you know, it's a workhorse we're gonna be using this airplane, so it's not gonna look pretty for long anyways. So I forgot to film this. You may notice the lighting's a little bit different. But the doors, a lot of people have asked about these. So what these are is seaplane doors, but they are factory Bearhawk upper and lower that I cut apart and re-welded into a seaplane door that comes up. They've got gas struts on the front and rear. We added air vents here and here, so you got one for the front, one for the second row. And then these are Hendrix manufactured locks. So to lock the door, you push it, you click it, and it comes open. You slide it forward and tuck it. So really lightweight latches. That drives a pin forward and back in the door. So far they've been great. Aside from that, I built carbon fiber trim rings that go around the door, and they seal it to the fuselage really, really well. When we're flying in the sand and the dirt, I don't want a bunch of dirt leaking into the airplane through the doors, or rain, or whatever it may be. Good sealing doors are a good idea. So that was the thought process behind the doors. In entirety, they weigh 14 pounds. You could lighten those up a little bit if you did a lot of carbon work, but that's about as light as you could build them out of steel with skins and stuff. If you wanted to, you could do an almost entirely glass door, which would be cool. You'd add a little weight and you'd be able to see all the door mechanisms. I closed them up, and then on the inside, you just got fabric, some carbon trim rings, and a handle for pulling them down. So that's the doors in a nutshell. They're real simple, nothing fancy about them. Would I do them again? Yes, big fan of them. So the basic performance numbers on this airplane, for those wondering, is stall in the low 40s, 43, 44 mile an hour range. Cruise in the 140s, 145. V&E's 180, but you'll make 145. If you're on small tires and that kind of stuff, you may see almost 160 mile an hour cruise. Takeoff and landing, when you're light, in reality, once you figure the airplane out, light, you're gonna be 200 feet-ish, 250 once you learn how to fly it. And then once you're full gross weight, in reality, you're 500, maybe 600 feet. But in reality, at 3,000 pounds, you can take off and land for your ground roll at about 500 feet. Your vertical speeds, you're gonna climb lightweight in the 1,800, 2,000 feet a minute range on cool mornings with lightweight. But in nasty days, you know, at 3, 4, 5,000 foot density altitude at full gross weight, you're still gonna see in the high 6, 7, 800 feet per minute range, depending on, you know, what engine combos you wanna go with. You can put big angle valve engines on these. They get a little nose heavy when you do that. You can put hopped up parallel valve engines. That's what I did. Takes a little bit to get those to cool better, but you can do it. But aside from that, it's a fantastic airplane. For us, we're doing mission work overseas. We needed an airplane that would go fast, would go slow, would carry a lot, was fairly cheap to build, to reconstruct, to repair, to do all that in the field. And this airplane fit the bill for us. So if you guys want to know more about it, or if you guys want to see anything else, leave a comment below. If you want to hit me up with questions about any of this, feel free to email me at virgilflys@gmail.com. If you guys are interested in TK gear, buying a Bearhawk kit, Kato props, EFIS, any of those things, you're interested in purchasing one, interested in how I put it in the airframe, hit me in an email at virgilflys@gmail.com. And look forward to talking with some of you guys. So let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one.